This is DaviD TaL. This is a Balagan connection, and things have changed. As you can see in the background behind me, we're over on this side of the world. I'm coming to you from California right now, and I'm going to be here for a while. And the Balagan connection is going to be connecting things that are happening there. From here, I will be speaking at churches. I'm going to go to prayer meetings and connecting this story as much as possible to the people that are here. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on because it's been almost a month and it's hard to imagine that this has been going on for already almost a month. Um, there is heavy fighting inside Gaza. Israel has moved into the Gaza Strip from the north along the coast, from the north around the corner, and actually across the middle of the Gaza Strip from the south. And basically, what's happening right now is a pincer movement or a surrounding movement for the city of Gaza. The fighting is fierce, and we have lost quite a few young men in the battles, and we'll be talking about that in a while. And yes, the Hamas is still using its civilian population in order to guard itself from Israeli attacks, literally putting bunkers and facilities underneath houses, underneath apartments, and even underneath hospitals. We've seen some footage now of literally tunnel entrances at the doorway of the hospital, go to underneath the hospital. And we know that there is food. We know that there is fuel underneath these hospitals, and they're being used as a main headquarters for the Hamas fighters, which, by the way, is against international rules of war. But the fighting is going fierce, and I'm sorry to say that we are going to lose quite a few young men. But Israel's determined to finish off the Hamas. What happened on Black Saturday will not happen again. And I think one of the things I want to convey to you from here is that determination is so deeply ingrained because it is not only connected to what happened on Saturday, but it's connected to who we are as Jews. We've been persecuted, we've been mass murdered, we've been killed for being Jews. And one of the things that we realized on Saturday, it's not over. And if we don't make sure that the Hamas is taken away, and I'm saying the Hamas and not the Palestinians, then we are not going to be sure that this is going to be over. And this is something I think people need to understand because I think the Western world thinks that if they demonstrate enough, if they yell enough and they scream enough, it'll allow me as a representative of my people, not to take out the most dangerous existential threat to my women and my children. Let me make this clear. They killed women and children. They cannot be allowed to live to tell the tale, which is very, very profound. On the other hand, the enemy is fighting a very, very dirty war. They're using hospitals as bases. And this week we had an event where they were trying to move some of the Hamas commanders out of the area of the fighting, running away in ambulances. And here's what happens. Israel hits the ambulances because we know what's going to happen. And then we're being blamed for being for war crimes. Okay. And again, we know that there were Hamas leaders. We know they're using ambulances, but the world doesn't want to believe this. And this is part of the battle that is being fought. And the battle is still being fought because it's not only Israel attacking Gaza. And what I want to show you here is a movie, a couple of seconds of movie, that was actually shot from the balcony of my house in Modin. I'm not in Modin, but the young family that is living there actually took a camera, went out on the balcony last night, and actually shot this video from my house in Modin. And what you can see behind me here is literally, you don't see the rockets being shot out of the Gaza because one minute the rockets hit the highest altitude, their engine turns off. What you're seeing is the Iron Dome moving in to intercept those rockets above Rishon LeZion, above Ramle, which were the targets they were trying to hit the other day. This is a fighting war, and the enemy is fighting just as much as we are. There's a humanitarian crisis that everybody is crying about. And what I don't understand is everybody's worried about the humanitarian crisis for the Palestinians that are living in Gaza under this Hamas regime. Nobody's talking about 250 Israeli hostages that are still in the Hamas's hands. Why is that not a humanitarian crisis? We have no indication of life. We don't know if the babies are still alive. We don't know if the grandmas are not being mass raped on a regular basis. Why isn't the Red Cross going in there? Why is everybody worried about Palestinian humanitarian crises and not about my families, my women, my children who are in a humanitarian crisis? Another thing that I'm hearing is collective punishment. I mean, oh, Israel is collectively punishing everybody in Gaza for what Hamas did. But when they came over onto the border, across the Israeli border, and grabbed women and children, is not collective punishment against everybody Israeli for what the Israeli government or the Israeli army did? Why is there a double standard? And the next Balagan Connection will be talking about the double standard and what that means. But today it's on my heart to connect something else that's a little bit kind of weird, because as they were going into Gaza, there's a short video, and I'm going to show you just a picture here on the side of Israeli soldiers flying an Israeli flag over a building in Gaza. And when I saw the label underneath, I got really excited because those Israeli soldiers are from a tank battalion, the 52nd Tank Battalion from the 401st Tank Regiment, which is my battalion and my regiment. I actually commanded a tank company of that regiment. And I felt a deep sense of pride to see the people from my unit, tank jocks just like me, flying the flag and bringing the fight to Gaza. But like everything else in Israel, there's a price. Because 2 days later, one of the soldiers that fell in battle was a young tank commander from the 52nd Battalion, 401st Regiment. And I saw his picture, and it hit me in the gut. Because 40 years ago, that was me on top of a tank inside southern Lebanon. And he fell on his tank in Gaza. What I'm trying to say is the battle is fierce and the battle is hard, and we will pay a price for what we need to do in order to defend our families. But another thing I want to connect to is another story of a lieutenant colonel who also fell in the battle for Gaza. And what's interesting, he's a lieutenant colonel from a sister battalion, not my battalion. But what was interesting when his name came out was two things. First of all, he was one of the soldiers that were reacted to the terrorists inside the kibbutz on that first day, meaning he went into infantry mode and he took out quite a few of the terrorists that were in Be'eri, that were literally massacring Jews inside. But then he would get back on his tank, and inside Gaza on his tank, he was killed in the battles in Gaza. But what struck me more amazing, is his name. His name is Salman Habaka, Lieutenant Colonel. Now, I don't know if you know, Salman is not a Jewish name. Habaka is not a Jewish name. He's a Druze. He's not Jewish. He's part of a minority of combination of Islam and weird thing that live among us. And those of you who've been here have heard about Druze soldiers. He's not even a Jew. And he fell in battle on his tank inside Gaza, defending the Jewish people. This is not just a war of Jews. This is a war of everybody who is Israeli. And I think that, in a certain extent, composes who we are. It's not just us trying to react to what they did. It's us making sure that everybody in Israel, men, women, children, Jews, Christian, Druze, and everybody else, okay, is going to be safe in this country. And until we are safe, this is not going to be over. So I needed to share that with you because it struck close to me to see that young face on the pictures. I mean, literally, this is what I was years ago. And it's just, we have a saying in Israel, every generation has this war. Mine was in Lebanon. This generation is in Gaza, but it's still the same. And while I'm thinking about this young sergeant, tank commander, and this lieutenant colonel, I couldn't help but connect something else. And one of the things that we do in Israel, I don't know if a lot of people know, but in Israel, in secular schools, we actually study the Bible. I'm old enough to be in a generation where we were actually doing Bible verses by heart. We were actually had to learn Bible verses by heart. And this is one of the chapters that I had to study as a young kid in school as by heart. And the Bible connection that I want to connect today is from 2 Samuel. This is the beginning of King David's political career. This is the beginning of him being a king. But David was connected to soldiers that had fallen in battle before, specifically Jonathan and Saul. And this is what David says at the end of the battle on Mount Gilboa, where Prince Jonathan and King Saul, the Lord's anointed, were killed by the Philistines, who actually some of them lived in Gaza. And this is what he says. The beauty of Israel is slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Tell it not in Gat, proclaim it not on the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. O mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain upon you, nor fields of offerings, for the shield of the mighty is cast away. The shield of Saul is not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not turn back, and the sword of Saul did not return empty. Saul and Jonathan were beloved and pleasant in their lives, and in their death are not divided. They are swifter than eagles and stronger than lions. Ittai and Salman fell in Gaza, protecting Israel. Let their memory be blessed. Pray for us. Pray for our soldiers that are inside. Pray for their families who have to deal with this. Pray for the hostages that are still inside. That it's unfathomable that nobody is actually screaming bloody murder about this. Pray for the leadership who has to make a decision. Pray for our enemies who are seeing what's going on and have to realize that you cannot take Israel on. Pray for the world leaders who are making the decisions right now, whether this escalates into a regional war that'll go into an international war that'll go into end times or not. Pray for the world and please pray for the peace of Jerusalem. This is DaviD TaL. This is a Balagan Connection from California. Hope to see you soon.